Okay, in my household, emotionally, no. I always felt my dad gave me more emotional, what's the word, support over my mom. But both
Oh,
of my
interesting.
parents were like good financial providers. But my dad, I mean, both were very equally protective, but just like in different ways, right? Like you think about like love languages. I don't know. You know, my dad was very like acts of service guy. And like till this day, that's what I need. Like he's the type of guy that like when he was on vacation in New York, he woke up 3 a.m, took the subway at 3 a.m. in New York to go get me a cheesecake to fly it back so I can have a cheesecake because that's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like dude, he never told me he loved me, but like that right there never needed the words because I
Okay.
felt it.
Okay.
You know, that's how intense it was.
That's so fascinating. Like
Yeah.
the just, you know, it's like painting with a different color. You know what I mean? Like you said, you didn't need the words.
Yep.
I see that a lot in clients, and I see that I think in my wife, who's very much an acts of service type person. You know, it was a huge point of conflict when we first started dating, but then deeper into being married for a couple of years. Always being used to these super, I think, toxic, probably dysfunctionally codependent relationships. And now all of a sudden, in these situations, I'm like, I need that outpouring of love and affection and just the gooey gushiness. And all of a sudden that's not there anymore. And I'm like, oh, this is different. What's wrong? Like,
Right.
are we having issues? Like I didn't really know. And putting things together, I think I had that book, the seven love languages.
Yeah.
Five.
Yeah.
I was right the first time.
Yeah. Did you make a couple more love languages?
Yeah, that's my book. It's coming out.
Yeah.
No.
White Claw sponsored me.
But I mean, it's so clicked for me after reading that book and seeing like, whoa, she really is an acts of service. So when you say that, it's just like, yes,
Yeah.
I see it. Like you really don't. And it's not that my wife doesn't tell me she loves me,
Tell me more, Adam.
Please, let me adjust.
but she is for sure an acts of service gal.
Yeah.
She goes and she will pick me up like 2 cases of White Claw.
Of White Claws.
Here we go.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, thanks, babe. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big thing for
Yeah.
her.
But I'm curious how much in a relationship do either of you talk to your spouse about your love language in the sense of that might be how she shows love, but does she know that might not be how you receive it?
Right.
So I see that in couples work a lot where they're missing each other entirely because one of the partners is like, oh, I'm giving them this, I'm giving them that. Well, that doesn't register for them because their love language is completely different.
Right.
And that's
Yep.
something I've navigated in my own marriage.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm curious, like, have you talked to your wife about that?
Yeah,
Like,
I
it's
mean-
great that you do these things, and I need you to tell me I love you more.
For
or I
sure.
need a hug. Or
Yeah. So I think it's come up just by default because again, I'm so used to a certain type of being in a relationship with a certain type of person. And like historically for me, those are very affectionate, touchy feely type relationships. And so for me, it came up as like, what is this? I'm starving over here. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and so, yeah, therapy,
Yeah.
couples therapy and really learning how to talk to each other too, I think was big for us. I don't know if that was a thing with you guys.
yeah, I think that to me is where love is expressed most is when you have those conversations and the willingness to meet your partner where they're at. So if I tell my wife like, hey, it's great that you did that, but this is actually what shows me and makes me feel loved.
Yeah.
Right.
And then she does that,
Right.
even if it's out of her comfort zone.
Right.
That to me is like, wow, you went above and beyond
Yeah.
because that's not your natural
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
And you did that just for me.
Right.
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 So that to
Yeah.
me is like the ultimate love.
right.
Filling each other's cup.
Yeah.
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 How about you
sure.
and your husband?
Yeah. We're pretty, I mean, I guess we're not like overly proactive about it. But yeah, like we're aware. And it's funny that you asked that question because I had that thought, like, what is your love language? You know, does that happen for you? Because I was thinking the same thing, how your wife received it, she shows it. And that's kind of how I segue it into my kids too. Because they have their own love languages too, you know, and that's always fun to kind of look at. But for me and my husband, yeah, like I'm very aware of what he needs. He's like a big like words of affirmation guy. And I was like, dude, it's the worst one for me. Of course.
You're gonna make me tell you I love you?
Like 35 times? No, like it's more like, oh, like I love you. Okay, but why? You know, and you're like, oh man, that's draining.
That's my kind of guy right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Are
love
you
it.
words of affirmation?
To some degree, for sure. I think it's like, I don't want the surface level like response. I want to know like, well, what is it? What is it about this relationship that that keeps you here?
Yeah.
What is it about me that fills your cup?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I want the real deal. I don't want this surface level sort of basic answer. I want depth, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
For
and that's
sure.
fair. I've been trained for sure to kind of have to expand. It has to go beyond I love you because I already anticipate the but why. So I just get ahead of it, you know,
Wow.
because you make me laugh and I had a great day with you. I really felt connected with you today. Or
Wow. So that's the work. Like that's your willingness to do something that isn't natural.
fill his cup. And
Yeah.
it's not all day, every day, but I mean,
That sounds exhausting if it were.
yeah, I mean, but every day at some point in the day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I get time. When I go pee at work, hey, I have free time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Sometimes
peeing, but I love you. And this is why I love you.
I think that's cool though. You know, like you were saying, it's like you adapt, you know. I notice, and for sure I notice when I do something, when my wife asks me to do something, you know, hey, can you do this today or whatever, and I do it, I see it on her. Like, and it's so obvious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think that's a huge component is like that adaptation, you know, where you're like you said, she's going out of her comfort zone to do that, you know, and it's a beautiful thing because you see it as the sacrifice that it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And to bring it back to culture, like I see how different cultures or different genders like approach love languages. So like men might not give as many hugs, right? So like physical affection, right? Like men aren't known for that as much as they are, or even the words, but we're known as more active service or like taking care of shit around the house, right? But a lot of men that I've worked with, it's like their dad didn't hug them, didn't really say, I love you. They might show it in other ways, but what if that's not how the kid receives it? And yeah, if you're not having those conversations with your kid too, I think it's difficult. Like my daughter's 2.5 and I just shower her with physical affection because she's my baby. But like, what if she's like, Dad, you're annoying me. That's enough. Like, just tell me you love me and leave it at that. It's like, what do I do with that? Number one, that would crush my soul.
Yeah.
But number two, I need to honor her perspective. Like she's a human being.
Right.
Yeah. That's when you send her packing, man.
Yeah. And then just have another one and fill the space until I hit the love language that is physical.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.